Welcome, Dr. Vargas. Thank you so much for being here. And it is an honor to be able to engage in dialogue with you about the department, the Transformative Inquiry Department. But, before we begin, I just am hoping you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about what you were seeking when you chose the Transformative Inquiry Department and how you sort of imagined or were manifesting how it would impact your work, your creative inquiries, and your personal journey overall.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Always delighted to come back and speak with the Transformative Inquiry Department. And of course, Transformative Studies was my PhD, so happy to be back. A little bit about me. Gosh, I think one of the defining characteristics of myself, my life, my experience is that I've been in community health, the community health organizations for about 20 years now. Right out of undergrad, I went into residential counseling and from there case management. And when I came to San Francisco, I also started doing alcohol and drug counseling as well and received my license, my clinical license in that. And it really, what I saw in the residential recovery system and the social model was that folks who kept saying that their souls had been torn, that they didn't know who they were anymore, that their trauma and their decisions had combined and sort of made this untenable situation. I saw how community came in to envelop those folks and how they healed with each other. And for me, it fit
Mm,
right into my cultural context of growing up Black in a tight-knit community, growing up Cape Verdean, growing up with like in a lower income class. All of those things for me really spoke about the interdependence of community. And so that has kind of been my guiding, I think,
mhm,
value or ethic growing up. And then interestingly enough, in my adult life, it actually, I lived out my values. And so when
mhm,
I came to CIIS for my PhD, I had already received my master's. I had already
mhm,
been counseling, I already had a clinical license. I still, though, did not quite understand the overall structure of systems. And I think
mm,
how to understand them, how to change them, when to try to change them, when to try to build new ones. And there was both this um, internal curiosity that I had about how people and communities change and how to facilitate that. And there was also
mhm,
this logistical need I had in order to advance my career. I did need a doctorate. There were other areas that I wanted to
mhm,
work in. And I know that those letters behind my name, especially for somebody with my social identifiers, meant that I'd be given more of a fair shot, a better shot than without the letters behind my name. It was also ancestral for me. I mean, I'm the first
mm,
person in my immediate family. And I'm thinking back through my cousins and aunts and uncles, extended family who has a PhD. And so it was also a way for me to push forward the envelope in my family and in my lineage as well. And the way it kind of played out was that I had an amazing cohort, some of whom I'm
mhm.
still best friends with.
Yeah.
My godson is one of my cohort mates' children. Like, we really
Uh-huh.
grew and
Mm,
bonded through that experience of coming in together, learning together, growing together, transforming together and separately. And what it also did, I think, was help me step back from pathologizing people, because that's what the clinical field had taught me to do, is really
mm,
focus in on one individual instead of realizing how unwell all of these systems are and how these are really the root cause of a lot of um, personal and interpersonal challenges and disorders. And so learning not only like the guiding principles of transformation in series in
mm,
systems, but also the metamorphosis effect,
mhm,
also arts as research methods, as a creative, that was important to me as well.
mhm,
It actually that I think learning how to engage art as a research method and as data
mm,
without
mhm,
losing the significance and the
mhm,
felt sense of the art, propelled me forward, I think, as a writer, as a novelist, and also as a educator and facilitator, because the art, in some ways, breaks open what the analytical psyche can't. And so
Hmm.
I found that's a fantastic way, not only with my clients when I was still counseling, but also with students that I teach, workshops that I teach, and in my own practice as a novelist.
I love that. I appreciate, in a way, I feel that your deep wisdom, not only within yourself, but within your communities, that extends into your ancestral lineages as well as your future ancestors, and in this moment that you're in, and this deep space of not only learning and co-learning and co-creating, but in a way amplified a deeper sense of, your calling, like your calling in this world. And I'm curious if you would agree with that, or if in a way, you were, as you were saying, this is part of all sorts of deepening praxis for you, deepening sort of the work that you do, and maybe it's both and in that space. But I appreciate how, in a way, you came into the program already with such a profound wisdom, and a deep insight about the world and the work that needed to be done and transformed, how to transform that. And in a way, I'm curious if engaging with the CIIS community of practice in your cohort, in your courses, supported that amplification in a way, and sort of enhanced your work in not only amplifying the academic scholarship of what you were doing, but also engaging with this deeper purpose, right? This
Mm.
deeper purpose that you're called into in this lifetime.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in my purpose and how I'm living it out, not only myself and community, it was maybe like 2009, 2010. I was doing my master's in the philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness program.
Uh-huh.
And um, I remember this quote by Frederick Buechner, historian, ecologist, philosopher, that was
Mhm.
around the lines of like, your vocation or your calling is where your passion and the world's greatest need meet.
Mm,
And that
mm.
for me has like, it really has been the draw that I look for, right? Like I feel it in my body when I'm in right alignment with what my passion is.
And maybe this is because I love engaging and thinking in systems and being in systems, but it's this dynamic relationship that I witness you seamlessly integrating in this interdependent, woven reality of the work that needs to be done, but also the joy and nourishment of engaging in this deeper embedded reciprocity within the system. And I just appreciate, like, just was appreciating listening to how you're bringing together, and not just like adding things together, but synergistically and dynamically, relating realities, consciousness, um, uh, sociopolitical, historical, all sort emotional, affective, cognitive realities together in this space. So I appreciate that. So,
That's
um,
also, I think, like my one of the superpowers of growing up and being a person in the margins, constantly in the
uh-huh.
margins, is learning how to be curious and how to
Yeah.
bridge and how to weave things together.
Hmm.
And also think it's one of the challenging things as well is like recognizing that there's often shifting ground no matter where I may
Hmm.
go because I'm a person in the margins. And
Hmm.
it requires a need, maybe out of survival, a need
Hmm.
to be able to work collaboratively like that.
Hmm.
And then from a need, I think those of us who are good at it and realize the impact and realize how much it feeds us, that need turns into, I think, a skill.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Can you actually describe any sort of series of moments or pivotal experiences that you have had at your time within the department, within TID, where I'm thinking of this in relationship to what you just said, and sort of, you know, what I consider a deep radical curiosity that emerges from, um, whether it's a need or a desire or a combination of all sorts of things, that radical curiosity, more than just an adaptation in often what we consider or experience as deeply marginalizing or oppressive or violent realities that we may have been enculturated into. I'm just curious whether there were moments during your academic time in the transformative inquiry department where your inquiry deepened in relationship to that dynamic relationship to that deeper history, that that lineage wisdom that you're part of, that you're within a stream of. And did that inquiry take on a different sort of direction, or did it have a different valence to it, or was there something unexpected that emerged from any of those moments while you were in the department?
Mm. Um, I distinctly remember being at the first retreat,
Mm-hmm.
the department intensive down in Pacifica, in group and in person with everyone. And I had I had been a student at CIIS before and a community member involved in a lot of student activities. And so I had a different sense, I think, of what academia could be than a lot of folks who may have been coming from more in the box, sort of what I call in the box academic education, as well as I was with a lot of folks who had come from the corporate world. And in
Mm-hmm.
those of us who have been in the corporate world or the nonprofit, these intensives or retreats are about networking. It's so busy. I find them very dehumanizing. It's why I don't go to conferences and those sort of retreats anymore. And I found my first one to be a combination of both um, the spirit of CIS and those commitments coming through and the outside sort of world of conferences and retreats and that sort of businessy networking
Mm-hmm.
mentality seeping in. And a number of us brought this up with our professors and the organizers. And I remember there was a response. And I think that is one of something that really sticks out to me is when groups of students, are like, this
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. And there's something going on with the overculture that is kind of wiggling in here. Can we explore it? And the response was, it was a number of responses, but one of them was to offer a contact improv session
Mm-hmm.
at the next intensive.
Mm-hmm.
That contact improv was between with student and a faculty member co-facilitating it. It was optional, but it gave instruction about consent. It gave instruction about
Mm-hmm.
approaching people with curiosity and humanizing values. And it reminded us to feel into our body and our own felt senses of when we were secure, insecure, comfortable, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we are practicing this contact improv, I found it like the recursive thinking of going in and out. Okay, what's my process
Mm-hmm.
here? How's this playing out in this micro community where we're engaging in physical touch and dance and movement? How does that also engage with all of the paradigms and thought structures and beliefs and learning that each of us are bringing in here?
Mm-hmm.
How is it swirling? For me, like the willingness of the faculty and the students and the agreement to co-collaborate and shift this brought me into such a deeper relationship, not only with my fellow cohorts, but also with the folks who were leading the department, because I also felt like I could trust and that
Mm-hmm.
seen and that there was, in transformative studies, there was transformation happening.
Mm-hmm. I totally appreciate that. And I appreciate you saying that. And in a way, it brings up sort of this felt experience of like belongingness too, you know, and this when you're in relationship with people. I went to, um, graduate school in a really research intensive environment where most folks, if not all the folks, did not share my experiences or came from where I came from. And in a way, uh, I had to accommodate into that space. And what I've noticed since joining the CIIS community is there's a different attunement to each other and a different attunement to the work that needs to get done and how we co-create and co-learn together, and our commitments to that. You spoke to the commitments of not only the institution through our commitments and principles and values, but also the commitment of learning, our co-commitment of learning within each of the departments at CIIS, and specifically in TID, how we lean into what transformative inquiry looks like in this space, and what does it mean to engage with the multiplicity of experiences that coalesce together in this learning environment. And so I appreciate you sharing about your experiences, not only with the intensive, but also with leadership, with the institution, but also how that connects to the cohorts that you were part of within the department. And in that, I'm curious, have these experiences transformed how you've engaged with transformative inquiry, and how you've manifested that in living action, in your own work. And I'm curious if your experiences in the department have have engaged with this ongoing process of what transformative inquiry looks like in action for you.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this leads back to your earlier question about like what emerged from my transformative inquiry that I wasn't expecting. And what that was and what it continues to be, to answer your question now, is this experience of my work being alive
Mm,
as a being in the world. And
mm,
I did, I would have never thought that I could engage in the sort of transformative inquiry where I could understand my dissertation as
mhm,
a living, breathing, not only work of art, but an energetic medicine.
mm,
And I engaged my dissertation as a being. I had had dialogue with it, I've had ceremony with it,
mm,
meaningful
mm,
dialogue. And I think I was able to do this, or I know I was able to do this successfully in academia, because I had frameworks from TID in terms of like how to conduct research, but also how to present it,
mhm,
as well as like the intense literature review process, the comps, all
mhm,
of those things help me reframe my lived experience of engaging the world as ensouled and as alive
mm,
and as participatory,
mm,
gave me the academic language, the jargon, the vernacular, the way to cite what is often termed that like what a lot of Black and Indigenous communities call the white written way, right? It doesn't
mhm,
happen in many academic circles unless it's written in the
mm,
written way.
mhm,
And so like I know how to do that, which means I can now
mhm,
riff. I can now riff in the way
mm.
that my soul needs to riff, right? I've learned the scales
Absolutely.
and the notes, and now I can jam
Yeah.
with other folks. And when I'm teaching a workshop or when I'm doing group counseling or individual, I also like incorporate the presence of folks'
Mm,
ancestors, the presence of their thought structures, like whether that
mhm,
belief is democracy or liberation, it's alive somehow in their life, uh,
mm,
as well as like the land and the ecosystem, what's happening to them. And so healing or transformation becomes ecosystemic between a bunch of living, participatory, evolving, and changing beings. And that's how I write, that's how I teach.
mm,
But I can also ground it in academic rigor as well when necessary.
mm. I love that deep integration, and I appreciate so that lightness and that wisdom, right? And that it feels not only enlivened by your work and your scholarship, but also enlivened by, again, sort of this integrative system that is both human and beyond human realm, that deeply gets shared in a radical hospitality, that there's that, which I appreciate, which I feel I wish I went to school with you. I wish I was part of your cohort in that way. um and I'm so thankful I get to continue to co-learn with you in these spaces. And I'm curious what you would say to someone who is considering this program, considering, what this program is. Like, what kind of advice or wisdom or insight or ideas, thoughts, experiences you would give to someone who's considering joining our beloved community, joining this community of praxis, and engaged in not only academic scholarship, but a deeper purpose and calling of what this work is. What would you tell them, or how would you engage with them?
Um, yeah, I would share that I am the type of person who usually bucks against a structure, because I like to be creative, and I'm tired of assimilating myself
Mhm.
into an
Mm,
expected form.
mm,
And I wanted to learn with a bunch of other folks who were also creative, were who also did not want to assimilate into the expected
mhm,
forms. And what I found was in TID, it was kind of like a smorgasbord, right? Like
mm,
I could take what the curriculum was and choose which direction I wanted to go with it. And I could then
mm,
experiment with women's spirituality, with anthropology and social change, with philosophy, cosmology,
mm,
consciousness, with eco spirituality. And with that, be able to create like not only a fantastic buffet for myself, but for my community as well.
mm,
I would say for world creators and world changers and world makers, uh,
mm,
I found it ideal. I found it ideal to have
mhm,
tools, to have understandings on how to change, how to engage the world, a changing world, but also the freedom, which I need, the freedom, the liberation, the liberatory praxis of taking that where my soul needs it to go, where my communities need it to go. So I would say
mm,
it was the yes and for me.
mm,
It was
mm.
multiplicity, it was paradox, it was the yes, and I can do this too.
I so appreciate that, and that yes and so, and thank you for that deep reminder of that too. That yes and exists in this space, and that you were able to dwell within it and animate it in the ways that you animate this world. So I appreciate that deeply. Dr. Vargas, thank you for this time. I really appreciate I just appreciate your wisdom, but also just learning from you, just being in witness to you, and the deep light and power that exudes from you. And I just appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your experience, your insight, all of it. So thank you for being here and engaging with me about the department. So
My pleasure.
thank you so much.